Some new PPP on New Year's Eve.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by McDermott, Will & Emery, lawyers passionately working to help clients tackle their biggest challenges today in pursuit of their boldest vision of tomorrow. More at MWE.com. And by C3.ai. C3.ai software enables organizations to use artificial intelligence at enterprise scale, solving previously unsolvable business problems. Learn more at C3.ai.
With the Marketplace Morning Report from rainy Austin, Texas, I'm Andy Euler in for David Brancaccio. The new year brings a renewed Paycheck Protection Program. The latest pandemic relief package signed by the president on Sunday has some $280 billion set aside for another round of PPP loans, but Congress has made some changes to the program. Marketplace's Nova Safo joins me now with more on that. Morning, Nova.
Good morning.
So what are these changes?
Right. So what we have here is Congress trying to clarify some outstanding questions. For example, eligibility, which companies and institutions qualify for forgivable loans. Congress made clear it doesn't want publicly traded companies getting these loans. It also expanded eligibility. Local chambers of commerce, housing cooperatives, churches, veterans groups, tribal businesses, farmers, ranchers, the list goes on, Andy. They all now qualify.
PPP are loans unless you spend the money on what Congress wants you to spend the money on. Then they're grants. I understand there are some changes there as well.
There are. The obvious thing is, of course, to spend the money on paychecks to keep people employed. But this time around, Congress expanded what other business expenses qualify. We spoke with Pete Eisberg of the payroll processing firm ADP, who's been tracking this.
For example, drive-through window facilities, filtration systems, physical barriers, health screening facilities, and things like that to comply with government guidance. But it could also be just business software and cloud computing services that facilitate operations, including, for example, payroll and human resources systems changes to help deal with the demands of business.
And here's another thing, Andy. Now Congress says those expenses are also tax deductible, and that has big implications with tax season coming up.
Nova Safo, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For the first time in 44 years, the U.S. Census Bureau has missed the deadline to produce the first set of census results for its count used to determine representation in Congress. The Census Bureau staff now have a completion target of January 9th, but it's unclear if they'll be able to meet even that, which means the data might not be ready before President Trump leaves office on January 20th. Now, that's important because the Trump administration has been pushing to exclude undocumented immigrants from the population base used for congressional seat apportionment. Let's do the numbers. Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are up modestly, with the Dow future up 18 points. Much will happen throughout the day on our money, markets, workplace, culture, and innovation beats. Listen for my colleague Kai Risdall, host of Marketplace, on many public radio stations or marketplace.org.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by McDermott, Will & Emery, with details on how COVID has impacted various parts of the healthcare industry and what leaders can expect going forward. McDermott's analysis is at MWE.com/afterthecurve. And by GEP, helping transform supply chains with strategy, services, and software, including GEP Smart and GEP Next, AI-based digital procurement and supply chain platforms. And by Charles Schwab. Schwab understands that wealth management is personal. That's why Schwab offers flexible, personalized financial planning crafted for their investors' individual goals. Learn more at schwab.com.
NFL cheerleaders have been underpaid for decades, sometimes earning less than minimum wage, while the players they root for earn millions. That's starting to change thanks to a series of lawsuits in recent years. So far, 10 of 26 NFL teams with cheerleaders have been sued for wage theft, unsafe working conditions, sexual harassment, and discrimination. A new documentary called A Woman's Work, The NFL's Cheerleader Problem, chronicles the women who spurred that change. Two cheerleaders for the Oakland Raiders and the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Buffalo Bills. The film's director, Wee Gu, joins me now. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
It's hard to believe that the NFL has been able to get away with paying these cheerleaders so little for so long. I'm curious, how did this happen? Was it just sort of flying under the radar? What was going on?
Yeah, I think at the very beginning, it was given to these women as a way for them to really showcase their talent and, in a way, volunteer to be there to perform. And over the years, as the NFL has grown into this multi-billion-dollar industry, that original thinking really hasn't changed much. So now these women that are in the film, they're really the first women to stand up and say, no, this is not right, and we need to do something about it.
And some of this has to do with the fact that teams, not the NFL itself, pay the cheerleaders. I'm curious how the NFL and its commissioner, Roger Goodell, has rationalized it.
Yeah, I think Roger Goodell has been on public record at a press conference saying he encourages each team to pay each employee fairly, but it's really the responsibility of each team, each corporation to pay their employees. And that's sort of the rationale. But at the same time, these women, they're NFL cheerleaders. They're, being marketed by the NFL on their websites. So it's really part of this system that is, making the NFL and the teams money.
There's an important sort of gender aspect here too, right? There's wage discrimination just wholly, but also sort of the way that we treat these women as sort of add-ons to what these men are doing out there on the field. That's an important part of the story you're trying to tell.
Yeah, and again, I think since the beginning of cheerleading in, the professional league and the NFL, it was seen as sort of this add-on. But since then, decades later, you see the evolution of cheerleading in high school, in colleges, and, it's very much become its own thing. It's, men and women are passionate about cheerleading. It's a sport. They're athletes as well as talented dancers and performers. So it's definitely evolved so much, and I think it's a shame that in the professional leagues, their role has been severely limited and has not been able to evolve. And a part of that is because of gender inequality, because they don't have power in their workplace.
Wei Gu is director of the documentary A Woman's Work, the NFL's Cheerleader Problem, premiering on PBS on Monday. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's been fun.
And a heads up, sports fans, the price of an annual ESPN Plus new membership is going to go up by $10 to $59.99. Renewals will remain the same. ESPN Plus has actually served as a bright spot for hard-hit Disney financials. I'm Andy Euler with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.